Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is great. I hope you like my presentation and everything I have to say. So this is about my journey to the top of Everest and about what I learned in the process. So first of all, a little bit about myself. I am originally from Poland. I was born and raised there, came here in 1993. We lived in Chicago for about 9 months and then moved to St. Louis. And I've been living here ever since. I went to SLU, got my double degree from SLU. Then I went for nurse anesthesia at Webster. And I've been working at Barnes Jewish Hospital for almost 17 years now. So big question, why do I climb? There's a famous mountaineer, Ed Viesturs, who said, well, I climb because the mountains are there, but it's such a simple answer. So obviously I didn't start climbing, I had to start somewhere. So I started hiking and backpacking. So, you know, I just always thought, I never had a lot of money, you know, coming from Poland, we're kind of poor family. But, you know, it doesn't cost anything to get out there. It just takes a little bit of planning, good hiking boots and a backpack. And then it's pennies. So I just wanted to share some pictures of where I've been on my hikes and backpacking trips. The first one is Grand Tetons. Second one is Havasu Falls. So this was a very long hike, about 30 miles back and there and back. It's in Arizona. You can see these beautiful waterfalls there. We also backpacked through Paria Canyon. So it's not too far from Antelope Canyon that almost everybody knows. This one is more rugged. It's also in Arizona, but it's about 13 miles long. And it's the longest slot canyon in the world, actually. And we have it right here in the States. So we spent the night in there. It was awesome. And again, it cost nothing, almost nothing to get there. Another place we've been to was Canadian Rockies. This is called the Fifth Lake. I just thought it was just breathtaking, you know, with the color of the water. I also backpack because I get the best hotel views in the world. So we were camping here in the first picture, and oh God, I can't. Oh my goodness, I just screwed it up. Let's see. Oh, I am so not computer savvy. Anyway, the first picture. We were camping by Grand Tetons. It was a sunrise. The picture below was Odessa Lake in Rocky Mountain National Park, also at sunrise. And the picture right next to it, this is a friend of mine, but I mean, look at these mountains. It's just the best view you can have. So having backpacked, I figured, well, maybe I should take it to the next level. So I actually took a class of Krav Maga. It's an Israeli style fighting. And I met a really good friend, and he suggested that maybe we should go to Kilimanjaro. It's like an ultimate hiking. So I'm like, oh, all right, yeah, we should do it. So little stats about Kilimanjaro. It is definitely non-technical. It takes anywhere from 7 to 10 days to climb. Any month is really great to climb because it's right on the equator, but the dry season, they have dry season and wet season. So dry season, like in September, would be great. Really minimal equipment. So I carried literally 10 pounds, 12 pounds. The thing about Kilimanjaro is that you cannot go by yourself. You must have a porter. This is how they make their money. And the porters just carry everything for you. The tents, they set up the tents, they carry all the food and they cook everything. So all you have to carry is just water and food for that day. So it's really great. Lunch, which is the altitude. as I will show next, it's at 19,341 feet. So you have to go pretty slow because you may get pulmonary edema or cerebral edema. And for those interested, it costs about $6,000. So that's the current price of the company that I went with, which was Mountain Madness. And that just includes the trip. It does not include the air ticket. And Helga and I checked how much the tickets were. It was about $1,800 or something, so kind of pricey. Another great thing about is you go through all the phases of nature. So you start in the jungle. This was at the very bottom. And then you go through subalpine section, then alpine section, and then you get to 15,500 feet. And they have these palm trees, and they are native to Kilimanjaro National Park. And they're just the weirdest thing. And then you move on, and the landscape looks like a moonscape, just all kinds of rock, really no vegetation. And then you get to the glaciers at 18,500 feet. They're, unfortunately, as you know, they're melting. And you get up early in the morning. So the first picture is the sunrise at the summit. All the white in the background is the clouds. And it's at the summit, obviously. One of the guys told me about 7 summits. And I've never really heard about it before. So what they are is the highest mountain on every continent. So I've had just done Kilimanjaro, highest of North America is McKinley, or nowadays they renamed it to Denali. Highest of South America is Concagua, right on the border of Argentina and Chile. Highest of Europe is Elbrus, not Mont Blanc. So Mont Blanc is actually the highest of West Europe, but highest of Europe, total Europe, is Elbrus. And then we have Everest, highest of Asia, Vincent Massif on Antarctica, and Mount Kosciuszko in Australia. So actually this is a 7 summits, and there's a list, it's called 8 summits. Some genius came along and said Australia belongs to Indonesia. So they took all the islands together with Australia, and they figured the highest summit would be on New Guinea, which is a Karsten's Pyramid. Lots of red tape surrounding it, of course, more expensive, but that's the 8th summit. So anyway, so I figure, well, I've done Kilimanjaro, non-technical. So my next mountain, I'm gonna go for Elbrus because it's not very high and it's not that expensive. It's non-technical, so I'll go ahead and go for it. So, like I said, it's non-technical, but some glacier travel skills are required. There are really no crevasses on Elbrus, but sometimes you have to rope up, depending on the weather. It takes about 2 weeks to climb. I wouldn't say it's very difficult. The best season is during their summer, so between June and August. Really minimal equipment, but must be able to carry about 25 pounds or so. So it's primarily food and water for the day and warm clothing. The challenge, of course, altitude again. The weather can get pretty gnarly. So my first time I went to Elbrus, I did not summit because of the weather. It stopped us in our tracks. We got to about 15,000 feet and it was just complete blowout. Really, really deep snow that you cannot get through. So I went again a year later. And cost is again about $6,000, so plus the ticket, obviously. This is a picture of coming down from the summit, and you can see the Caucasus Mountains in the background. This is me finally standing on the summit the following year. ice axe. It was cold. I don't have any kind of puffy on. It just weatherproof gear, but I mean rain gear. But you need definitely crampons to get to attach to the ice. All right, so I figured the next mountain. I figure I did Kilimanjaro and Elbrus, so I might go for more. We'll see how I do. So my next one was gonna be Aconcagua, but in order to do that, I needed some more training. So I decided to go to a mountaineering school here in the Cascades and go for Mount Baker. So if you're adventurous and you want something more challenging, but really don't go very far, you don't have a lot of base, this is a great mountain. It's fantastic. So it's a mountaineering school where they teach you glacier travel skills, the ropes, the knots. It takes only 3 days to climb. Again, best season is during the summer, May through August. You need a really heavy backpack, about 60 pounds for food and equipment and ice axe and everything. Just mainly for training, but there's a lot more equipment, a lot of ropes, and ropes are really heavy. The challenges are not the altitude because it's not very high, but it does have crevasses. So they would teach you how to get out of a crevasse, or if somebody on the team would fall into a crevasse, how to get them out. And the challenge is a heavy backpack, obviously. Cost only $1,000. Anybody can do that, come on. It's me on the summit. See, it's not, I'm not dressed very warm. So it was a wonderful mountain. So anyway, having done that, I figured I was ready for the next summit out of the 7. So it was Aconcagua. Again, it is not very technical. Aconcagua is very, very windy. So there's not a lot of snow and ice. There's a lot of rock. It takes about 3 weeks to climb, primarily because of the altitude. So you have to go really slow not to get altitude sickness. Their best time to climb is during their summer, because they're in a different hemisphere. It's opposite of ours, so December through February. Backpack is not too terribly heavy. It's about 45 pounds, so it's manageable. You have to carry the tent and the food, obviously. The challenges. So extreme altitude, it is almost 23,000 feet. So personally, this is my max without oxygen. I cannot go over 23. And I remember coming up to the summit, and it was 1 step, 5 breaths, 1 step, 5 breaths. It was terrible. The weather, as I mentioned, it is extremely windy. So I remember going from camp 3 to 4, and it was just a little pass, and the wind was about 60 miles an hour, and it just knocked me on my butt with this backpack. Ooh. And coming up to the summit, as you will see in the next slide, we had a blowout, a snowstorm. And at that altitude, it could be pretty dangerous. I saw people coming down from the summit who had frostbite. So it's a real mountain, as I would describe it. For those interested, the cost is $5,500 or so. So just some pictures. This is coming up to base camp, Aconcagua at sunrise. Beautiful with the orange shades. And then the next picture is me at the summit in a snowstorm. So I'm wearing a Budweiser hat because I was already kind of thinking about Everest, but it's so expensive, Budweiser would sponsor me or something, so I was taking pictures with a Budweiser hat at every summit, but it didn't sponsor me. That's okay. All right, so next one, I figure, well, I did 3. So I had an easy hike, right? Kilimanjaro, then Elbrus, a little bit more technical, Aconcagua, which I did extreme altitude. So the next one is the ultimate mountain, which to me, it's the ultimate mountain. It's Denali. The reason, I'll tell you in just a second. So it's semi-technical, but you need to have very strong glacier travel skills. You are always roped up to somebody else. There are 3 people on a team, always roped up. That mountain is just ridden with crevasses. So, I mean, you don't see them and you can fall anytime. So those people have to hold you, or you have to hold somebody, your teammate, whoever falls in. You all have to travel at the same time. So if you're tired, you have to push to hold the rope at the same level all the time. You can't go any faster, you can't go any slower. It takes just a little bit over 3 weeks to climb. The best season to climb is late May through early July, very small window, because before May, it's too cold and too windy. And in mid-July, all the glaciers are starting to melt. So it's too dangerous to travel. For the equipment, lots of equipment, all the glacier travel stuff, and equipment for the extreme weather. So it's extremely windy on that mountain, and the mountain is pretty much, you can't predict the weather. The mountain makes the weather. So we had to bring these hand saws and make ice walls around the tent every single day. And the wind would knock them down in the middle of the night. We would have to get up and redo the ice wall. And then it was crazy. For the challenge, the altitude, like I said, extreme weather, just windy, very, very cold. And you have to be in a top physical and mental condition. So when I say that, top physical, I was 34 years old when I attempted Denali, and I was at my top shape of my life. So just for training, just to give you an idea, I trained 6 days a week for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And I ran, it wasn't just jogging. I ran for about an hour and a half twice a week. And I would get up on a treadmill with 85 pounds in my backpack. I have this elevated treadmill. And then 100 push-ups a day, all kinds of squats and lunges and sit-ups. I was a machine. For the equipment, you also have to carry about 120 pounds total. So just to give you a comparison, I weighed 135 pounds. So you carry about 80 pounds in your backpack and the rest in a sled. And it's mainly guys who go on those trips, and there's no being gentleman or anything like that on that mountain. It's everybody takes their share. So I had to carry 120 pounds. I did not appreciate that. That's about 10,000.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I did not summit because of the weather. We got to the highest camp and we camped out for 5 days, and it was miserable. There were 3 of us to one tent. It was cold and windy and snowy, and we never summited. But I knew that I could do it, right? I knew that I had it in me, top physical condition, and having done Aconcagua, I knew I could do the altitude. So the next step was Everest. So I raised money, I fundraised. I took a second mortgage to pay for it, and we took off. So little tidbits. Again, semi-technical. When I say really technical, it's really like those vertical climbs, and multiple pitches. So semi-technical is just, yeah, there are some ropes and glacier travel, but it's really not that difficult. Like you don't have to be a top-notch mountaineer. It takes a very long time to climb, 2 months. It's primarily because of acclimatization. You cannot just go straight up the mountain because you're gonna get really, really sick. Mountain sickness. There's really only one season, April 1st through the end of May or early June. Some people go in the fall, but it's really, really windy then, and it's not, well, it's never guaranteed to summit, but this chance of the summit is even less. For the equipment, glacier travel equipment, so the ropes again, and crampons and all that. Weather gear, so snowsuit, and the backpack weighs about 30 pounds. So good thing about Everest is that they have Sherpas, and I went with a commercial expedition. You certainly don't have to, but I think I would be crazy not to. And I went with a really, really good company. So the Sherpas set up ropes and ladders through the Khumbu icefall, and you'll see in a little bit what Khumbu icefall is. They carry food and tents throughout the camps, and they're just kind of like, they're sort of like porters, but they're a little bit more. It challenges obviously extreme altitude, extreme cold, extreme mental challenge. So first of all, you're away from your family for 2 months. There's minimal conversations with your family. So only really at base camp, and our bandwidth was 1 megabyte. So really nothing. So you can't really even call, just emails. And this mountain is just, it's a draw of luck, I think. There are so many dangers. You just really have to be lucky not to get sick, not to get hit in the head with a rock. You hope the Khumbu icefall doesn't fall on you. And another challenge, Lhotse face. It's a 3,000 feet of sheer ice that is so hard that sometimes the crampons, the spikes from the boots, do not attach to. So, yeah, the cost is 70,000. It's crazy. Anyway, moving on. If you guys have any questions, please chime in.
Hey, Gosha.
Yes.
There's a question about meals. Joseph is asking what your meals were like on 2 months of your Everest trip. What was the specialty? I guess that's what he's asking, right?
What do you mean, the specialty?
No, I'm joking. I mean, what did you guys eat during the 2 months of the hike?
What did we eat? Yeah.
What? Yeah.
So, it depends on the camp, actually. So there are 4 camps, and plus base camp. So because it's 2 months, you must stay healthy. If you get a GI bug or anything like that, you're out. Because at this altitude, you're just not gonna recover. So base camp, they would either fly in or bring in by yaks, like gourmet food. They actually, like, Sherpas cooked for us. It was awesome. It was all kinds of like normal food, And then camp 1, it was like airplane food. It was ramen noodles. It was terrible. And then second camp, which is called advanced base camp, it was sort of like base camp, maybe not as good, but also pretty good. Third camp was on the face of the Lhotse face. It was just like camp 1, ramen noodle. And then South Col, which is the 4th camp, it's very high. It's in the death zone. You feel like crap. And at altitude, you don't want to eat anything. You have to make yourself. So really, they gave us some ramen noodles. but you have to like carry Snicker bars or whatever you like, or chips. You make yourself. So you really don't eat much at Camp 4. So, yep.
Thank you.
All right, other stats. The number of permits per year in Nepal. So as you may not know, Everest is on the border of Nepal and Tibet. So you can climb from either side. The price from Tibet is actually less. It's about 35,000. All kinds of red tape in China. So sometimes they even close the mountain. So I chose to go from Nepal because it was just more sure that they would let us. So the number of permits issued per year at Nepal are about 400. First summit was May 29th, 1953. And as the most recent stats, about 6,000 people have reached the summit for about 8,500 summits. Since, some people go multiple times, especially Sherpas and guides. And 678 women climbed. I was 343rd.
Fantastic.
Thank you. All right. So my mouse doesn't work here, so I don't know how to, but you guys can see the route. Yep. So from base camp there at 17,500, which it's in itself is a little, high. It's only 1,000 feet less than the highest mountain of Europe, Elbrus. So you go through Khumbu icefall there. You can see it's about 3,000 feet of glacier. So glacier naturally moves, right? But because it's on such a steep ground, and it's just ginormous, it's like towers of ice. So it moves about 5 to 7 feet a day, and especially in the sun. So when we were going through Khumbu icefall, we were traveling at night to avoid heat of the day. And I don't know if any of you remember in 2014, there was a huge tragedy as the rock fell at Khumbu icefall and killed about 14 Sherpas. So this was bad because they just were unlucky and one of the ice towers fell on them. Anyway, you go through Khumbu icefall, you hope nothing happens. You get to Camp 1 at 19,500 feet, very primitive. Then you go through Western Khum, sort of flat-ish, actually pretty nice to walk through. You go to Camp 2, and then the route goes through Lhotse Face, again the 3,000 foot sheer wall of ice, and that's where the ropes begin. So you always have to clip in. If you fell, the rope is gonna hold you. If you don't clip in, you die. And you go through, I don't know if you can see between these two little triangles there, C3 and C4, are those little dark, it's called a yellow band and Geneva spur. So pretty much just rock, like big area of rock. So we all wear crampons on a mountain, and crampons do not attach to rock, obviously only to snow and ice. So you have to go through rock. So that's another challenge. We finally go to C4, which is South Col 26.3, and then to the summit. So this is base camp. My husband went with me to base camp, and then he went back. So for all of you adventurers out there, the trip to base camp itself, it is fantastic. Non-technical again, it's just a hike, high altitude hike, but outstanding. It's so cultural, and those mountains are just giant. Like nothing like, if you've never been to Himalayas, it's nothing like you've ever seen before. They make you feel like you're insignificant. So anyway, those little yellow dots in the back, this is all base camp. And the Khumbu icefall is to the right, the white. Left picture, that's Khumbu icefall. The right picture, this is my tent. So they cared about us so much that we all had individual tents at base camp. So this was very nice. So a little bit about the structure of the climb. Why does it take 2 months? So you have to acclimatize. There are 3 rotations. First one is what takes about 10 days to get to base camp. And then at base camp, you have to acclimatize because it's so already high altitude, 17,500 feet. So for about a week, they call it active acclimatization. So you walk around, you climb on Khumbu icefall, you know, just do anything, eat a lot. Well, you try to eat a lot, just anything to get those red blood cells going so you can carry more oxygen. And then after 7 to 10 days, you go on a first rotation. First rotation carries you to Camp 2. So you go through Khumbu Icefall and then to Camp 1, spend a night or two, then to Camp 2, spend a night or two, and then back to base camp for another 7 to 10 days. And then second rotation, you go through Camp 1, Camp 2, all the way to Camp 3 in the middle of Lhotse phase. And then you go all the way down, not only to base camp, but also lower to really recuperate and to eat, to kind of get your body ready. Anytime you're at altitude, it just, the body like self-consumes, you know, because there's just not enough of calories that you can take in, especially when you're actively climbing at high altitude. Like I mentioned, you don't have appetite at high altitude, so you eat really crap. You lose weight, you just lose weight. So anyway, so this was the left picture was us training, or me training on Khumbu Icefall, and then the right picture, just another pretty picture from base camp. This is a picture of Khumbu Icefall. The crevasses are so incredibly large that one letter is not enough to cross the crevasse. So sometimes they attach 2 or 3. This was the scariest thing out of the whole mountain for me. I know it sounds silly, but I do have a fear of heights. The men heights. I can stand on the ridge of a mountain and not be scared, but like on a ladder, and that's crazy. And the ladders are wobbly. You have to clip in to the ropes and just balance yourself. And you're in crampons, you're in spikes. So it's not like it's just boots. You have to position the crampons just ideally on the rungs of the ladder and just balance yourself, and you hope you don't fall. So I remember standing in front of the ladder and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm paying all this money and I'm risking my life, and it's just dumb. So I'm like, I'm either gonna go back and I'm never gonna come back, or I'm just gonna, you know, maybe forget about the crevasses and just go through it and push forward. So I did that. Here's another picture of the wonderful letters in Khumbu Icefall. And yet another one. So you can't even see the bottom of the crevasse. Crazy. Anyway, get through the Khumbu Icefall, you go to Camp 1 at about 21,500 feet. So as you see, it's pretty pleasant. Still some crevasses there, but pretty flat and pleasant, and no more towers over you, you know, risking your life. You get to Camp 2, it's more rocky. You can see Lhotse face in the background. And this is just one of the tents that we had. There were multiple tents there. And then you go through Lhotse face. So this is a close-up of Lhotse. It starts right here where it says Bergschrund. We actually camped at Upper Camp 3 when we finally got there. You can see the yellow beds, the area of rocks, Geneva Spur up at the top, and then finally South Col. This is a picture at the bottom of Lhotse Face. You can see Camp 2, and the people at the very right corner there. See how small they are, and how magnificently huge those mountains are. By the way, I see something at chat. I cannot see that, so if people, you guys have to like tell me if there are any questions.
Yeah. Just admiration, only admiration.
Oh. This is our Camp 3 from Lhotse. They're kind of positioned steeply, so they're not on the flat ground. You can see Pumori mountain in the back, and then on the very right side here, you can see Lhotse, how steep it is. I did not care for this camp. It was scary. And imagine going to the bathroom. That's another one. Anybody interested how we go to the bathroom on the mountain? Because I always get that question.
Yeah, do tell.
Okay. So for girls, it's so cold. You have a pee bottle. So you try not to get out of the tent, although there is an area outside of the tent, like a communal pee area. So you can either go there or you can pee in a tent in a pee bottle. There's no modesty on the mountain, by the way. And you can bring like this little pee funnel. So I used to use that. For number 2, well, you go outside and you poop in a bag and you have to take this bag with you or drop it in a crevasse, because there's this motto, leave no trace on a mountain. So yeah, but not to worry, it's so cold that the poop freezes, so it doesn't really smell. You just have to tie it on the outside of your backpack. So anyway, so it was really scary to go to the bathroom on this, just like little tents right next to each other. And it was steep, and you don't want to fall, and not my favorite. Anyway, moving on. This was the yellow band. So the picture to the left, it's still the Lhotse Face. You can see some clouds over there. And coming up to yellow band. So as you can see, all kinds of rock, all kinds of ropes. Very difficult. Next one was Geneva Spur. So coming up to the last camp, we were all on oxygen at that point. Actually, from Camp 3, we started on oxygen. And I don't laugh at patients, obviously, but you know how sometimes people are on 2 liters of oxygen, 3 liters of oxygen. I was on half a liter of oxygen laying in my tent at Camp 3. And I thought it was heaven. Just half a liter makes such a difference. Our max flow, by the way, when going to the summit was 4 liters. That's the max. Everybody in the group bought another tank of oxygen. So we, little luxury there. This is South Col, which is Camp 4. Extremely windy. So as you could tell from before, the whole mountain is covered with snow and ice. Camp 4 is so windy that it's just all the snow gets blown away. And it's so windy. You can tell like the left head right here to the left, that's almost ripped away. So much trash. It's really sad that people leave trash behind, but I can kind of see why. It is so uncomfortable there. It's so hard to breathe. And it just, every step takes such energy. And then, especially in the wind. So, and our tent actually got torn up. The bottom of the tent got torn up at South Col. Here's what kind of gear you have to wear. So that's me. I didn't take this oxygen off almost at all. So that's my snowsuit. This is our oxygen for our group, ready to go for the summit. And this is the way to the side. And I wish my mouse was working. So you go, you can kind of see the people in the right corner. There's like a little trail there. You go across the bend and you just kind of go kitty corner all the way to the summit there. This is on the way to the summit. So we left at 11 o'clock at night and we saw the sunrise and we summited at 8 o'clock in the morning. The most amazing thing I saw while going to the summit was, you know, you're so high up that, well, first of all, the sky is just impeccable. You can see all the stars. You can see the Milky Way. But when the sun was rising at about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you're so high up that the sun was rising way down at the horizon. And it's just way down. So you could see the stars on your right side and the sun on your left side. It just amazing, amazing. You could just see both of those at the same time. This is South Summit. Yeah.
Gosha,
Yeah.
Elvira is asking, how many hours a day on average did you hike as you were getting closer to the top?
On the average, so the summit day took 11 p.m. until 8 a.m. to summit, and then I got down at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Previous days, maybe 10 hours, 11 hours. It's not too bad actually for the mountain. Like on Denali, oh my goodness. Denali, coming back from the last camp, you go straight down. So we left like 6 a.m. We ended up back at base camp at 4 a.m. I call it a death march. It was terrible. So especially those days, like going down from the summit, those are long, 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 long days. But on average, like 9 to 10 hours maybe. Anyway, so we're standing on the South Summit. That's me in the blue snowsuit there. And it's so you get up to the South Summit. So when you climb up, you see this ridge, the top, and you think it's the actual top of the mountain. Well, it's not. It's the South Summit. This is what we're standing on. So you actually have to go down and then up. And then you still have the ridge and the Hillary step. And you think it's, oh my God, it's so close. Like you can see in this picture, it's so close. Oh no, you still have like 2 hours to get there. It's so slow. This is coming up to the Hillary step. And it's, let's see, I wish I had a mouse. So it's this like little rock here. You see people right to the right. And then they had an earthquake 8 years ago or so. So I feel the Hillary step is not the same as it used to be. But when I was there, it was about 80 to 100 feet, just vertical rock. Had to pull yourself up on rows because again, crampons would not attach to the rock. And it just, nothing, it will just, you have to straddle it. Nothing to the left, nothing to the right, nothing behind you. And very, very scary. But it was the last obstacle before the summit. Anyway, next one is me on the summit. I took the anesthesia tie. I took a picture with it. So I gave it to Dr. Evers afterwards because he graciously allowed me to go, take 2 months off. The next picture is, I did not mention it, but after Aconcagua, I had to have a big surgery, thoracic outlet syndrome. For non-medical people, it's a compression of the nerves of the brachial plexus where they have to resect the first rib and get all the scar tissue out. Extremely long recovery and painful. As I mean, I was pretty fit, and it took me like 7 months after that to be broken up. So there's a surgeon at Barnes, Dr. Thompson, who fixed me up, and I was extremely thankful to him. I took a little banner and put it on the summit for him.
So is he having it in his office? I
It
bet.
is in his office, yes. This is a video from the summit.
Here we are on the top of the roof, folks. Absolutely incredible.
Wow. On the top of the world.
Me down there, going down. Let's see.
Amazing.
This is one of my favorite pictures. So we were coming down from the summit, and that little pyramid, that's a reflection of the summit. That was pretty cool. On a descent, so we summited. Our guides figured, they knew that there are lines on Everest, as I'm sure you've heard that there are so many lines there. So we summited when the weather was not ideal. It was extremely windy and it was cold. It was about -30 on the summit, so we stayed about maybe 10 minutes. But as we were coming down, you could see the line of people on Lhotse face. It was just crazy. And then picture up to the right, it just coming down. I think that, yeah, that was from the summit. Again on the rock, and yeah. So the lesson learned, definitely mind over matter. As I mentioned, from the crevasses, you know, you just have to put your mind to it. You know, you just have to overcome your fear. And what I learned on Everest is that definitely you can achieve anything you put your mind to. Before I went to Everest, I used to think, oh my God, Ironman. I need to do Ironman. This is like the ultimate. Those people are like machines. I want to do that. Or can I do it? Well, I've never done Ironman. I don't think I want to, but I know with proper training, I can do it. And anybody can do it. Proper training and just perseverance, you can do anything. Anybody can climb Everest. It's just a mountain. You just have to put your mind to it. And maybe fundraise some money. That's all I have.
Fantastic. Thank you, Gosha. This is amazing.
Of course.
It is really amazing, but it doesn't answer the question why.
Because I see things that I wouldn't ever see. You know, like I mentioned, the sunrise and the Milky Way.
Yeah.
On Denali, that mountain is so pristine. You look and you see nothing but white, and then just this virgin snow and ice. I mean, it is incredible, just absolutely incredible.
So
And
I've
then
never,
maybe just to prove to myself
done
that I
this.
can, you know, like when I was training, oh my God, I could never do 100 push-ups right now. There's no way. I could probably hardly do 10 push-ups right now. But, you know, it just kind of like, I guess, kind of like running marathons, Ironman, just to prove to yourself that you can.
Yeah, but this is, I mean, yeah. So my husband's an Ironman athlete. I'm not, but
Goodness.
yeah, no, he's an Ironman. He's done it. He won't get the tattoo. I keep telling him he should get the tattoo. He earned it. But you know, they have a little tattoo they put on their calf muscle so that when they're running, people can see it. They run ahead of someone, they can see the Ironman logo.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I've only tried this one time, and it was, you know, a very small thing. I don't even know what you call that, Ron, a 14er.
Yeah.
But what struck me was that what you're really doing is you're kind of going to a part of the planet that humans aren't really supposed to occupy. You know, it's sort of like people that, and your quote verse, Sir Hillary, I've seen him speak. He spoke here in town a few years back. It reminds me of the Jacques Cousteau types that want to go to the bottom of the ocean. It's like, that's part of the planet that, you know, is just not fit for humans. Is that part of the appeal for you? Because like, to me, that's kind of appealing. It's like, okay, it's like going to the moon or going to Mars.
You know, yeah, but there's just something so compelling about mountains. You know, it just, you are right. Humans are not meant to be there.
No, I mean, nothing lives up there.
Nothing, absolutely nothing.
It really is like the moon.
Yeah, not even bacteria, because when people die, they don't even decompose. So
Gosha,
They don't decompose.
they don't. No, actually, so three people from my group went on to Lhotse, to Summit Lhotse, and they encountered a man tied into ropes who died a previous year, and he was kind of like desiccated a little bit, you know, like dried up, but very well preserved.
Gosha, wonderful job. This is really informative. I really like the fact that you indicated the hike from Lukla to base camp. I did that. Here's a picture. I was there, and I would like to just kind of reinforce, Patty.
Yeah.
You can do base camp, and the truth is, although it costs 70 to 100,000 to get to the pinnacle of Everest, you probably can get to base camp for $5,000.
Oh yeah.
And it's, as Gosha said, you're walking through neighborhoods, which seems a little bit odd, but you've never been so immersed in a culture where they love having you there because you're the lifeblood of their economy.
Yeah. Well, you know, as I'm watching this, Kilimanjaro is the one that I think is fascinating, because you go through so many. I think you said you went through 5 or 6 different, you know, climates. You go through a rainforest, you go through.
Yes.
Yeah, that one, that really is, that's really intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, I recommend Kilimanjaro to everybody. It is such a beautiful mountain and just so diverse. Because, you know, usually you go through, like, to base camp of Everest. Well, you go through, I mean, there's vegetation, mountains. I don't want to say it looks the same, but it kind of does until you get to base camp. There's more glaciers. But Kilimanjaro, you really go through all the spheres, you know, all this. It is amazing.
Yeah, that is really what. So what's next for you?
So as I just put in a chat, Elvira asked what was next. So I actually tried Denali again right after Everest, and I did not summit again. I got a GI bug, but my team did not summit again because of the weather. And then I decided to have kids, and now I have 2 kiddos. Those are my current mountains.
Yeah. And just as challenging, very challenging.
When they get older, you know, when I can actually justify to them that I want to, you know, that mommy's going to be gone for 3 weeks or so, I want to go back to Denali and get it, because, you know, third time will be the charm, hopefully.
Yeah.
And there are volcanoes of Ecuador, and just maybe I'll go to Kilimanjaro with them. Who knows?
Oh, that's another question. So are these like, the Kilimanjaro is a volcano mountain, but all mountains aren't volcanoes, right? Some are caused by the pushing up of the plates.
Correct.
Okay, so some of them aren't volcanoes. Is there a difference in the feel and the way you conquer those different types?
Well, you
Do
don't
they
conquer
look
a mountain, the
different?
mountain makes climate. But
I mean, do they look different? Is there a difference?
no, it depends how tall they are. So the volcanoes of Ecuador, obviously I've never been, but they look just like the mountains. They're so high, they're so tall. Volcanoes of Ecuador are like 21,500 feet. There's really no difference. Obviously, they're not active volcanoes, so yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Gosha, I have a question.
Yeah.
So what was the time frame from that, like, first slide you started with just simple hiking to Everest?
So,
Like the time you started, you remember like your first slides to the
Yeah.
Everest?
Mhm.
Like how many years?
So I started hiking when I finished anesthesia school, so in 2005. And Kilimanjaro was 2007, 2 years. I
Okay.
hiked a little bit in Poland, but really not much, Again, we didn't have money. So yeah, two years of hiking. And then, in between those mountains there, I still hiked and backpacked, training.
And
You
then 2013 was Everest, right?
Yes, 2013. Hmm.
Okay, so it was a time frame of what, 8 years
Yeah.
from some kind of start to Everest, right?
Hmm.
Okay.
Are you going with the same people on these trips, or these are your self-directing yourself?
No,
I
not
mean, I
at
know
all.
you sometimes, sure, but is it you have people that you go with, typically?
So I go with a company. I usually go with Alpine Ascents. I've been with them enough that I know some guides. So I had, like,
Mhm.
for example, I had the same guide for Aconcagua and for Everest. As far as the actual teammates, it's always new people. I don't know
Mm.
anybody. I just show up and then here I am. Who wants to be my roomie?
Mhm.
So Gosha, so let's say it's a group of 5 to 10 people, right? I don't know, going to climb Denali, right?
Mhm.
Is there one person who is kind of dedicated, like some kind of paramedic, like someone who knows a little bit more about, I don't know, CPR or, ACLS or anything else, or is just average knowledge about it?
So, like Denali, it's 6 members and 2 guides. So the guides have basic knowledge of rescue. So, for example, in Everest, two people from my group got pulmonary edema. So our guide gave them nifedipine and dexamethasone, Decadron.
Mhm.
As far as like CPR, I'm sure they know it, but it's basic. They're not medical. It's just very, very basic.
Basic.
Yeah, I don't think they even will even know like how nifedipine works. They just know what it does, that they need to administer it, but not mechanism of action.
I see.
So it is a risk when you go, obviously.
Okay. Who was in your team when you were climbing Everest? Like, what is the profile of the people? They were not professional climbers, right? So they were people from all walks of life, right?
Yes, so primarily very wealthy people. So one guy was CEO of Nestle from Switzerland. Another woman was CEO of something in San Francisco. Uh, some guy was this independent, wealthy guy, self-retired at 40. So nice. And we had a Saudi Arabian princess. So
Oh,
Daddy paid for everything. So she had very strong legs and a very strong core. Not so much upper strength, but yeah, hey, if Saudi Arabian princess can climb it, see, everybody can climb it.
that's fun. That's interesting.
But primarily people with a lot of money, like they all self-paid. And the girl who couldn't summit, she went again next year. I mean, this was it for me. I mean, I either summit or not. This was a one shot because, like I said, I took a second mortgage for this. And some people are just, yep.
Have time and money.
Yeah.
How long one tank of oxygen lasts on Everest? I
So
mean,
those-
obviously depends on the flow. Let's
Yeah.
say, I don't know, like 2 liters or something.
So those are pretty small tanks. So one tank, at least one night. Yeah,
Okay.
and then on the summit, before we left for the summit, we got a full tank, and then we switched tanks. So we summited, and then we came back to South Summit. So I would say, how long did it last? 11 o'clock till, so that's 8, 9, about 10 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not too bad.
That's awesome. Why Denali is taking 3 weeks? That sounds long to me.
Acclimatization hikes. So
Okay.
we take a plane to base camp, and then we go up, we build a camp, and then you have to cache supplies. So you go up to camp 2, you dig a hole, huge hole, you put like extra clothing, extra food, extra supplies, and you go back to camp 1. And then the next day, you go to camp 2, you dig everything out, you build camp, and then just day after day after day. And it's just camp. I mean, Denali has 6 camps. It's a big mountain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's the same principle like Everest, but obviously Everest is higher, so it takes longer, right?
Mhm. Every
Okay.
mountain has the same principle. You have to go very slow, and you're supposed to go, you climb high, you sleep low. So you climb high during the day, and to acclimatize, to build up those red blood cells, and then you go down to rest, to let your body
Mhm,
rest.
mhm, mhm.
Gosha, what recommendation would you make for those of us who would like to take the first step? Obviously, when you say anyone could do Everest, I do think that there's a challenge there for some of us. But if you were to make a recommendation for someone who has the goal of doing something that maybe is a defining moment in their adventure life, which of the mountains that you've discussed or that you've visited would you recommend?
Kilimanjaro.
Mm.
So it's because it's just so diverse and it's so cultural. And I hung out with the guides and the porters in the tent, and the food that they would cook. So they would cook differently for us versus them. And they would eat like a goat. It was just so wonderful, and all the spheres of nature, the jungle, and it's not difficult. It's really not difficult. And the other ones, you kind of have to like it, because it's just snow and ice, always the same. And the base camp to Everest, I would do that. I would recommend that.
Super. Which
That sounds good.
which guide did you take to Kilimanjaro?
I went with Mountain Madness. There is a specific reason. So when you go with any other guide, the last camp is at 15,800 feet.
Did you
And then
do
you have
it
to get up early in the morning and go to the summit, which is 19,300. So that is almost 4,000 feet. And I saw people throw up. I mean, that is a lot. 4,000 feet in one day. That is a lot. With Mountain Madness, we went to 18,500 and slept by the glaciers, and then went to the summit. It took us, I don't know, maybe an hour to get to the summit. There is a risk with that, because if you get sick at 18,500, well, you can't really go for the summit. And there's a higher risk that you will get altitude sickness at a higher altitude. I don't know, I took the risk, and I really liked it like that.
Excellent.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for Gosha? If not, maybe a big round of applause. And
Oh,
we live vicariously through your next adventures. So thank you very much.
Uh,
Big round of applause.
Thank you, Gosha.